Do you know how much Mihawk respects Zoro? Or what about Sanji? Does he even have any respect for his green-haired crewmate? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down in today's video. We'll be giving each character a percentage of how much they respect Zoro, starting with the ones who have the least respect, working our way up to the ones who have the most respect. So let's get right into it with the first character, Saint Charlos, the spoiled celestial dragon who has zero respect for Zoro. Back on Saba Odi, Zoro didn't get out of his way and he almost straight up killed him if Bonnie hadn't stopped him. Charlos already thinks anyone who isn't a celestial dragon is trash, but he especially hates people like Zoro who don't bow down and show him the respect he thinks he's owed. Next up, we've got Pika, who has absolutely zero respect for Zoro. Why? Because Zoro did the one thing Pika can't stand. He laughed at his voice. Even though Pika knew Zoro was way stronger than him and kept running and hiding during their fight at Dressrosa, he still has no respect for him at all. Now we have Arlong, who's got about 10% respect for Zoro. When they faced off at Arlong Park, Arlong easily gained the upper hand because Zoro was injured. But the moment he tore off Zoro's bandages and saw that massive scar, he was genuinely shocked. He couldn't believe Zoro was still standing, especially since a wound like that would have killed any regular human. So yeah, Arlong has some respect for Zoro's toughness. Though let's not forget, he absolutely despises humans. Let's talk about King, Kaido's right-hand man, who's got 15% respect for Zoro. During their fight at Onigashima, Zoro managed to crack King's mask, which made him really start to hate him. Throughout the battle, King kept insisting that Zoro, being a human, didn't stand a chance against him. But by the end, even King couldn't deny Zoro's incredible skill as a swordsman. Now let's talk about Kaku, one of Zoro's toughest enemies, who actually has 20% respect for him. Kaku doesn't hold any grudges or feel bad about losing to Zoro back at Enies Lobby. He sees it as a fair loss to a strong opponent. He respects Zoro as a tough rival and was actually excited to face him again on Egghead Island, wanting to prove he's gotten stronger and can beat him this time. Next up, we've got another swordsman, Marine Admiral Fujitora, who has about 25% respect for Zoro. Fujitora acknowledges Zoro as a strong swordsman, and since Zoro is Luffy's right-hand man, and Fujitora sees Luffy as an honorable and respectable guy, he figures Zoro must be decent too. Of course, he's still a pirate, so his respect only goes so far. Now, we've got Tashigi, the Quina lookalike, who has 50% respect for Zoro. At first, she saw Zoro as just a criminal who disrespected her after he refused to cut her when he won their fight in Logtown. When they then met again at Punk Hazard, she started to respect his strength. She also realized she was wrong about him after seeing him cut down Monet to protect her, so she came to understand that Zoro's actually a pretty good guy after all. Let's now talk about the Ghost Princess, Perona, who has 70% respect for Zoro. After running into him on Kuraigana Island, she decided to treat and nurse him when he passed out, as he was the only other person around. They didn't get along at first, but over the 2 years they spent on the island with Mihawk, she started to trust and respect him. She even ended up taking Zoro back to Saba Odi to help him so he wouldn't get lost. She also stayed behind to hold off the Marines, giving him and the Straw Hats a chance to escape. So yeah, she respects him, but she also hates how stupid he can be and how he always gets lost. Next up is Kid's right-hand man, Killer, who has 75% respect for Zoro. Killer knows just how strong Zoro is, especially after their intense battle in Wano where Zoro came out on top. Later, when they came up against Kaido and Big Mom, they actually showed off some good teamwork, so it's clear that Killer respects the Straw Hat swordsman. Now we have the former shogun of Wano, Kozuki Sukiyaki, who has 80% respect for Zoro. Sukiyaki respected Zoro a lot for giving back Shusui to Wano, and in return, he gave Zoro Enma, and he was very impressed with how quickly Zoro got the hang of the sword. He also noticed that Zoro had both Wado Ichimonji and Sandai Kitetsu, which he saw as a clear sign of Zoro's strength and his ability to handle powerful swords. And anyone that can handle Enma is worthy of his respect. We now have to talk about Luffy's best friend, Trafalgar Law, who has 85% respect for Zoro. By the time they fought Kaido and Big Mom at Onigashima, Law and Zoro truly respected and trusted each other as teammates. Law had also saved Zoro's life multiple times, saying that his allies' lives were his top priority. But, that being said, he also gets very irritated by how Zoro never keeps his captain from doing stupid and reckless things, and also how even Zoro himself keeps getting into bad situations, like being named as a wanted criminal in Wano when they were supposed to keep a low profile. Alright, we now have Kuma, who has 90% respect for Zoro. When Zoro was willing to take on all of Luffy's pain at Thriller Bark to save his captain, Kuma warned him that it could kill him. But Zoro didn't hesitate. He was ready to sacrifice his life for Luffy, and Kuma truly respected that. Next, we've got Kaido, the King of Beasts, who actually respects Zoro a lot, 90%. During their fight, Kaido praised Zoro for his strength, just like he did with the other Worst Generation pirates, since Kaido respects strong people. But what actually shocked him was when Zoro used Conqueror's Haki and managed to land a huge slash, just like Odin did 20 years ago. So as Zoro's one of the few people to leave a lasting scar, it's no surprise that Kaido has a ton of respect for him. Now, let's talk about an old friend, Koby, who has 92% respect for Zoro, despite being a Marine. At first, Koby was terrified of Zoro because of his scary reputation as a pirate hunter. But after helping Luffy free Zoro from Captain Morgan and getting to know him, he realized Zoro's actually a really nice guy. He even started to admire him and his strength. When they then met again at Water 7, they were both happy to see each other. And Koby will never forget how Zoro was one of the people who helped him become a Marine. We now have our first Straw Hat, Nami, who has 95% respect for Zoro. Nami respects how strong he is, and she relies on him to protect her. However, she's annoyed by his lazy attitude as he's always napping on the ship, and she hates how he always gets lost. She also manipulates him by charging him 3 times the money he borrows from her. But all this being said, she of course cares about him a lot. Let's continue with the Straw Hats and talk about Franky, who has 98% respect for Zoro. As we all know, Franky loves the Sunny, and as Zoro is always protecting the ship, even waking up from naps just to block attacks, Franky has nothing but respect for his crewmate. Moving on to another Straw Hat, Chopper, who also has 98% respect for Zoro. Chopper looks up to Zoro as he thinks he's so cool. For example, during the Long Ring Long Land arc, when Zoro yelled at him to stop crying, Chopper didn't get upset. Instead, he just toughened up. That said, Chopper hates it when Zoro refuses to listen to him when he's injured. He also wants to fight him whenever Zoro acts like he doesn't care about crew members missing. The last Straw Hat that also has 98% respect for Zoro is Usopp. Like Chopper, Usopp looks up to Zoro's incredible strength, but he gets super scared whenever Zoro gets mad at him for his insults. When the crew's in danger, Usopp often hides behind Zoro. For example, when they met the Minks, he was hiding behind Zoro, still throwing out threats and even using Zoro's arm to point at them. Alright, we are now moving on to the characters who have even more respect for Zoro. And first up is Sanji, who actually has 100% respect for his rival. Maybe this came as a surprise, but although Sanji sometimes hates Zoro and of course always gets frustrated by his green-haired rival, Sanji still truly respects him, especially after he took all of Luffy's pain by Kuma. So again, although they keep on fighting and insulting each other, Sanji definitely respects him. Continuing with the Straw Hat Pirates, we now have Brook, who also has 100% respect for Zoro. Brook is super thankful to Zoro for getting his shadow back, and he was really moved when Zoro offered his life to save Luffy from Kuma. As the 2 swordsmen of the crew, they get along really well, with Brook looking up to Zoro's sword skills, even though he's way older. But whenever Zoro points this out, like calling him Grandpa, he gets really angry. We now have Jinbe, who has 100% respect for his new crewmate. But how can Jinbe have 100% but not someone like Chopper? Well, it's not that simple. Because of how much Jinbe respects Luffy and sees him as the one who will make the world a better place for everyone, he truly respects Zoro for always having Luffy's back and being by his captain's side. So that's why Jinbe has nothing but respect for Zoro. Before we get to Luffy, we have to talk about Nico Robin, who obviously has 100% respect for Zoro. It took a while for Zoro to fully trust her, but he's always protected her whenever it mattered. Like when he caught her after she was hit by an L and wanted to get revenge for hurting her, and he of course played a huge role in rescuing her at Enies Lobby, which she will never forget. So she easily has 100% respect for him. Now we finally get to the Straw Hats captain, Luffy, who has 100% respect for his right-hand man. Luffy trusts Zoro with his life. He even relied on him to keep Kaido busy while he took a nap to recover. So honestly, I don't think I even have to say anything else. That pretty much says it all about how much Luffy respects and trusts his right-hand man. And that was all of the Straw Hats. So now let's continue with more characters with nothing but respect for the Straw Hats swordsman. And first up is Koshiro, Zoro's old teacher. Koshiro is incredibly proud of the man Zoro has become, and he of course recognizes how incredibly strong he is. So while he's very proud of his former student, he's not too happy that all his other students want to follow in Zoro's footsteps and become pirates, even saying that he didn't teach him how to become a pirate. After talking about Koshiro, we then of course have to talk about Quina, who also had 100% respect for Zoro. When she noticed how much Zoro had already caught up to her in skills, she felt discouraged, as she thought boys were just stronger than girls. But Zoro said it didn't matter that she was a girl. His goal was to be as good as her. They then promised each other that one of them would become the greatest swordsman in the world, and that meant everything to her, and she really respected him for it. Unfortunately, the very next day, she passed away. So, yeah. Next up, we have Hiyori, who has 100% respect for Zoro. She not only respects him as a man, but also trusts him with her life, especially after he saved her from Killer. After the battle at Onigashima, Hiyori was incredibly grateful for everything Zoro has done and sees him as someone very important in her life. However, she found it pretty weird when Zoro didn't show any affection towards her after she cleaned him. She even asked him if it was exciting for him, since she thought all men would enjoy that. Now, to the person you have all been waiting for, Mihawk, who also has 100% respect for Zoro. Mihawk truly believes in Zoro's potential as a swordsman, knowing that one day Zoro will be strong enough to take him on. And I can't wait for this fight. Also, fun fact, when Mihawk trained Zoro at Kuraigana Island, he banned Zoro from drinking booze until he mastered Haki, which must have been very tough for him. That being said, Mihawk truly respects Zoro and sees him worthy of challenging him for the title of the world's strongest swordsman. Now, we only have 3 characters left who actually have more than 100% respect for Zoro. So, before we continue, can you guess who they are? Pause the video and comment down below. Well, let's get right into the first character, which is of course Bartolomeo, who has infinite respect for Zoro. This guy isn't just a Luffy superfan, he's a fan of all the Straw Hats, though Luffy is obviously his number one. Remember back in Dressrosa when Bartolomeo saw Zoro for the first time outside the Colosseum? He literally started crying tears of joy because he thought Zoro was so cool. He literally couldn't even stop. Finally, the 2 last characters, Johnny and Yosaku, who also have infinite respect for Zoro. This duo, together with Zoro, were once a team of bounty hunters, but even after they split up, Johnny and Yosaku still think Zoro is the coolest and strongest guy in the entire world. They also call him their big brother, as they look up to him as the best of the best. How much do you respect Zoro? Well, give me a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next.